This presentation is called the yes, no, yin, yang, because they're two of the simplest words in any language, and they pretty much cross cultures to all languages. And when I started thinking back over the course of my life, there's a couple specific things in my life that I said yes to that made all the difference in the world. And how, though, do we balance the yeses and nos in our lives? You can't say yes to everything, or you wouldn't have time for the things that are most important to you. So there is a duality there. There's a yes and no that's very important here. So I want to, again, share some stories with my life, and then let you kind of think about, what's the evolution of language? How do kids learn to say yes and no? How do we as parents communicate yes and no to our kids? How does it all come about? Because I didn't know any of this, but I wanted this to be meaningful for myself as well as you. So I went through and researched all this stuff, and I'll share some stories with my life as well. But what did it expose me to? Present to win. Maybe there's some things in life that you just must be present to win for. And there's things like this all around. Barnabas Browning was so scared of drowning, shut himself in his room, nailed his window shut, and cried so much he drowned himself. But that's Shel Silverstein, because he gets kids. So it started me thinking, what comes first with language? When kids learn language, what comes first? And this is all stuff that I had to research in order to put this presentation together. And no comes first. It's literally a root behavior. One of the things I ran across was no and yes on Genesis of Human Communication. And no as a root behavior, literally when babies are rooting to try and breastfeed, they can do this, but they can't do this until 3 months old. And adults even carry this over. I mentioned I'm in bank marketing. There's a pioneer of checking research out there, and you probably never knew that before today. The pioneer of checking research understood that when you go to choose a checking account at a bank, you don't choose the one you like the most. You choose the one you dislike the least. So you look at the menu and you're like, I don't like that one. I could never carry that balance. Oh, look at that service fee. Me. And that's literally the noise you make when you choose a checking account. Me. But that's how we do it, because we're not thinking people that sometimes feel. We're just feeling beings that sometimes think. And no is also, like I said, that root behavior. It keeps the status quo. It keeps what we know. If you've ever done like change consulting or gone into a business and said, hey, we're going to change everything about your checking products, now we train you at whatever, hell no, you're not. That's just a natural reaction. People don't like change. They want to keep the status quo. These things are still rooted in us. And as children, think about as parents, this is an interesting thing for me as a parent of a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, is how do I say yes and no to my kids? The positive affirmations versus the discouragements. And just by economic standing, when you look at the classes from a professional class to a working class family to a welfare family, the ratio of positive affirmations to negative affirmations changes dramatically. From a 6-to-1, yes, you can do that, or yes, we can go to the zoo, yes, I'll buy you a pony. I mean, this is pretty high income. Down, though, when you get to the welfare family, 1 yes to every 2 discouragements. So over the course of the year, we're talking about going from 166,000, yes, we can do this, to only 26,000. It's an 85% decrease. And on the no's, from a 26,000 to 57,000, 118% increase. It's like 71 no's per day on the low end of like 151. As a parent, this does influence how your kids are going to perceive the world. And again, being exposed to Shel Silverstein to me was a world where he understood there's no's, uncertainties, etc. He understood there's yeses too, but he understood that the kid's mindset is that there's a lot of no's. So at the same time I'm going to grad school, I'm also working at the Garden Cafe. So I'm waiting tables at the Garden Cafe, and one day 2 late 20-year-old women walk into the restaurant. And I'd seen them there before, but never waited on them. And I went over, went through the daily specials, here's the soups, etc. Get them their drinks, come back. One orders mashed potatoes and a cinnamon roll. Very odd. The other one asks about the chili. She says, are there a lot of beans in your chili? And I instantly knew what she was talking about. I love chili, but I hate beans. Anybody in here like very low bean chili? Okay, we meet on Thursdays at 7 o'clock. We have a little support group. But there's really not that many of us out there. But the woman said that. I said, yeah, it's got a lot of beans in it. And the woman who ordered the mashed potatoes and cinnamon roll said, can you pick the beans out of my friend's chili? Yeah, why not? Honestly, as a writer, I'm learning that there's odd things that can happen that can change the whole course of a story. So I went back and ladled the soup, pulled all the beans out, gave it to them, got a nice tip, didn't think anything about it at all, and left the Garden Cafe shortly after that to go wait tables somewhere else. And then about 10 months after that, I was at a bar, Bodega's Alley. Anybody know what Bodega's Alley is? And I run into the cinnamon roll and mashed potato woman. I know, exactly. And we didn't talk about the beanless chili or anything like that. I mean, we talked about whatever. She'd seen me write an article for the Daily Nebraskan that week in the paper, so it was kind of a little serendipitous. And we talked for a while, and I asked, are you seeing anybody? She said, no. Are you seeing anybody? No. Can I have your number? Fantastic. The next day she went into work, and she told her coworker, who was the chili lady, guess who I met last night? Beanless chili. That's what they'd been calling me for 10 months. Beanless chili. They'd go in, I wonder whatever happened to beanless chili. And I saw beanless chili last night. He asked for my phone number. Beanless chili called me, we were going on a date. 4 months later, beanless chili asked me to marry him. And then 10 months after that Bodegas meeting, oh my God, I married beanless chili. She eventually found out my name and all that stuff, but that was just a curious story where, again, the yes to picking the beans out of someone's chili made a very interesting course of my story. My life story changed from there too. And I say serendipity is kind of like an odd thing, serendipitous, an odd life-changing event in a beneficial way. But I've become more mindful of the idea that we do control our ability to take advantage of things that seem to be serendipitous. That was truly a serendipitous moment. And this is a story where I said yes in my professional life. And to me now, yes is like, how can I create something brand new? So yes, in this case, was Intuit, is a company that contacted me. I do blogging for the bank marketing industry. Said, would you like to write a blog post about social media? I said, absolutely. Can it be about unicorns? Because I just drawn that unicorn. I figured, well, hell, I've got to share this out there somewhere. They said, we're not sure what you're talking about. I said, just trust me. They said, we do reserve the right not to publish this. I said, I understand. So I wrote a 4-part series of blog posts about how hunting for social media return on investment for banks is kind of like hunting a unicorn. It's just something fun. It's very much part of my personality. And banking's kind of stodgy, so it was a chance for me to get to write something original. And 2 days later, J.D. Power and Associates, they contacted me. Their social media department head was saying, would you like to come speak at the McGraw-Hill building in New York to the top 20 banks in the United States doing social media? Absolutely. So yes was more about, I don't consult on social media. I sell direct mail pretty much for most of my time, but it was a chance to get out there and do something brand new. And so yes has evolved to me for a lot of different ways. There's a no moment with Shel Silverstein that turned into a yes to picking out beans out of chili. And now I feel like when I actively go out and put myself out there, I'm trying to create these yes moments. But again, thinking about the no, when I was researching this, I've had 5 months to think about what I'm going to say today. And I did what is the no moment, or researching no. Because when you say no, like when we watch the Nebraska Huskers, oh no, you can feel that anxiety, right? Moments when people say no, it's because sometimes they say yes and they fail, and they think about the failure. And that dominates their feelings about going into the next moment where they have a chance to say yes or no. But yes, people don't necessarily regret failure. They regret the times they didn't seize the moment, their non-attempts when they didn't put themselves out there. And that's one of those things, Greg talked about it earlier, Kara talked about it, it's that fear. A lot of times no is our fear, that predatory instinct. We don't want to go out and hunt the dinosaur. We want to stay in, protect ourselves. It's very natural, but now it's become something where we don't consciously always think about yes and no in our life. And it changes over time. So in the short term, you get your ass handed to you, okay, like we did. That's all you think about. You don't want to put yourself out there. But long term, the psychology of regret says when you're on your deathbed, you're going to be thinking about the times when you didn't put yourself out there and seize that opportunity. Because time kind of heals all those wounds. So when you're thinking about, the yes moments make a life, we say I do to our spouse. I love this one, the magic carpet, is that you all have a magic carpet that will whiz you through the air to Spain, Maine, or Africa if you just tell it where. So will you let it take you where you've never been before, or will you just buy some drapes to match and use it on your floor? Because you have the power. Yes and no. I met an entrepreneur last week who I just saw, he's in here somewhere. He was talking about when he quit his job and went to start on his own, 75% of his coworkers were like, oh, I wish I would have done that a long time ago, or I wish I had the balls to do that, etc. And it's like you can. You're struggling with certain questions or yes or no or whatever. Just understand what the no is stemming from, the fear that somebody talked about earlier. But you can control it. And yes is what makes a life. Thank you very much.